Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and today I've got a tag for you. This is King of Horror, the Stephen King book tag. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, a little tag video for you today. I'm woefully behind in my prep for my sci-fi wrap-up for September. So that will come next Friday. So today I just wanted something quick and easy to do, and lo and behold, Cliff over at Cliff's Dark Gems tagged me in this tag. So I thought, well, yes, why not? Perfect season for a bit of Stephen King chat, isn't it? October. So thanks to Cliff for tagging me. I will link to Cliff's video in the description. The tag was created by Jess over at Jess Book Girl TV. I will link to Jess's original tag video as well, of course. So let's get straight into the prompts and have a chat about Mr. King and his books. So prompt number 1, how did you get into reading Stephen King? I think probably similar to a lot of people, he was the first horror author that I tried. I was about 15, 16 I think when I first read some of his work, and I had not been a horror fan at all before that. I eschewed horror in all its forms because I was a big old scaredy cat, and I still am. I didn't like horror movies, TV shows, etc. And I kind of thought because I was scared of those, I wouldn't like horror books either, horror fiction. And then friends at school were chatting about, you know, Stephen King and how good they thought his stuff was. So I thought, oh, we'll give it a go. And so, yeah, so I basically picked it up because of peer pressure. No, I was influenced certainly by conversations at school, and just kind of thought I'd give it a go, knowing that I could put it down if it was too scary. So prompt number 2 then, what was the first Stephen King book you read? That one was The Shining. I picked this just because I liked the sound of it, you know, a hotel in the mountains. And I picked it because I was going away on holiday to a hotel in the mountains. I thought, yeah, this would probably be quite atmospheric then. And it was. I wasn't in Colorado, I was in Slovenia, but it was a hotel. It wasn't remote and it wasn't closed off, but it was quiet. And it was very, very hot weather when we were there, so we'd get up early and go out for the morning and then come back, and everybody else in my family had a bit of a siesta. And I stayed awake and read The Shining, and absolutely fell in love with it. Absolutely adore that book, and that was the beginning of it all. Basically, it was The Shining that made me a Stephen King fan, and you know, want to search out more of his stuff immediately. Okay, prompt number 3 then. Have you read a Stephen King book published the year you were born? I was born in 1981. I haven't read anything from that year, although I should hopefully be reading Cujo, which was 1981, within the next couple of weeks. So I will have read, hopefully, one from the year that I was born by the end of the month. The closest I can get so far is 1983 and Pet Sematary. Question number 4 then. Which of his books do you prefer to collect? Hardcover editions, paperbacks, or doesn't it matter to you? I actually prefer none of those. I prefer the audiobooks, and this is how I got back into not only King but reading in general, or books in general, in the last like 3 years. And you know, it's only been sort of since 2020 that I've been like an avid reader and like really, really into my books. And that was because when the pandemic kicked off, and you know, we were kind of searching for things to do that we could do from home, I had an Audible subscription free trial, and I picked up a couple of Stephen King's, and listen to those, and that was immediate. That was like, it's the right level of scary for me now. Stephen King audiobooks, certainly the one that I picked was It. And having it read to you and having that kind of performance of a book just ups the fear factor a little bit from reading it. Not so much like movies I don't do, because that's too high in the fear factor. I don't like the visuals getting into my head if they're too scary, because they won't leave. But it's like, telling spooky stories around a campfire or having a story read to you is a different experience, I think, or can be a different experience. And for me, that's where I love my Stephen King the most, is having it read to me or performed. Prompt number 5, how many of his books are on your bookshelf? In terms of hard copies, I have 5. I have, let's have a look, I've got It, I've got Skeleton Crew, I've got The Regulators, that's a Barkman book, of course, I've got, I'm missing one, I know there's another one, and there's one that I've literally just bought this morning, so it was 4, no it's 5, and that is The Dark Tower. The Gunslinger, the first one, which I haven't read yet. So that is now on the shelves as well. So yeah, 5 hard copies, and then I've got 17, I own 17 of his on audiobook in my Audible library. I don't have any ebooks of King's. I used to have more hard copies, but I've sold them over the years. They were just kind of, mass market paperbacks. And so they've gone, once they've been read, they've left the library. Okay, prompt number 6. Stephen King is known for long and gory novels. Which of his novels was tough for you to read? The toughest for me to read in terms of its themes, I wouldn't say it's gore. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're like really gory. They're long, yeah. There are some long novels in his bibliography. But I mean, I guess it's all a matter of like, perspective and sort of relative to what else you've read. But I'd certainly say there's a lot of stuff that I've read that's more gory than King. But in terms of the themes, definitely, Pet Sematary is by far and away the hardest for me. When I first read it, I didn't like it particularly. But then I was very young and I didn't really understand the themes. And I've reread it recently as an adult, as a 40-something-year-old adult. And it's about grief. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's the horror in that is not just the actual kind of, visual horror, if you like, of the kind of the supernatural elements, the kind of stereotypical horror. It's the horror of grief, and yeah, I do think it's a really difficult one in terms of its themes, in terms of its kind of psychology, if you like. It's certainly one of the most affecting ones for me. Okay, prompt number 7. Have you DNF'd a Stephen King book? Yes, I've DNF'd a couple a long time ago. I think the 4th book that I tried of his, bearing in mind I was probably still only like 16, maybe, something like that, 16, 17, and I'd got into King as horror, was Eyes of the Dragon, which is of course fantasy. And also I didn't have any reference for characters like Flag, because I'd not read The Stand. At that point, and I don't think I got past the first couple of chapters, and I just kind of went, well, this is not what I want, this isn't the Stephen King I want, so I DNF'd that one. And similarly, I think this again, I was maybe just too young, not what I was looking for. I DNF'd Insomnia. Again, I was probably 17 or 18 when I DNF'd that. So those 2 are on the list for kind of try again in the future, but they're low down the kind of the priority list of the Kings that I've still got to read. Prompt number 8 then, have you read his books in publication order? Nope. I go for, what I think I might like based on what my mood is and what the you know, the back cover says. I do know from like my experience of what I've read of his so far is I do tend to enjoy his earlier work more, certainly than his later stuff. There are some great later books, but yeah, it's his early stuff. It's, you know, it's The Stand, it's Salem's Lot, it's Carrie, it's Pet Sematary, it's that kind of era. That's the king that I fell in love with. So that's the stuff that's the stuff I prefer. So I've still got some from that sort of 70s, 80s period to get through, definitely. But yeah, I don't have any kind of need to read them in order. Okay, prompt number 9. What Stephen King book would you like to read but haven't read yet? Well, that one. I've been meaning to get to The Dark Tower for a while, especially now I've read The Stand and I've got some reference for Flag. But yeah, I've put it off because we're into the fantasy, and I'm less of a fantasy fan. But I do keep hearing really good things about it, and it's Stephen King. So, and I have read some of his fantasy, and enjoyed it. But yeah, I saw this in a second-hand bookshop today, and it was cheap, and I kind of, oh, get that on the shelf, because then when you fancy it, you can just pick it up and try it. So that's one of them. But the one that I really want to get to is his newest, which I've not had a chance to get to. I wanted to get to it in September when it came out, and that's Holly. And I haven't managed. I didn't have time to start it in September, so it's still on the list. But as soon as I get a break in the schedule where I can actually start it, that's the next one on the list to read, is Holly. Needful Things is also one that keeps intriguing me. That's certainly, it's not one I hear talked about a huge amount, but the premise of it I do really like. Okay, prompt number 10. Name a book that King's written that other people liked but you didn't. There's two that come immediately to mind. One is 11/22/63. Really didn't like that. Didn't keep me particularly engaged at all. I liked the premise a lot, but it just, for whatever reason, it just didn't grab me at all, and it was a bit of a slog to get through. And the other one was Misery. Again, I was much younger when I tried that. That was I tried that immediately after Eyes of the Dragon, and then after that I read Insomnia, and that was kind of where I left King for quite a few years after that, because I had 3 poor ones that I didn't like. But yeah, Misery, I just didn't get into it at all. I just found it quite boring. But I think that was a symptom of like my age and it not being what I really wanted from King at that time. But I will go back to that, absolutely. I need to give that another chance, because I think now as an adult, being better read and knowing more about what I like, and the fact I like different things as well as an adult, I think it's time that I give Misery another go. Okay, prompt number 11. Name a book of King's that you think is underrated. I don't know really whether this is underrated. It's just not one. It's not one of the ones that you hear pop up all the time. So maybe it is underrated. I don't know, or maybe it's it's about. Maybe I just haven't come across all the people raving about it. But that is The Outsider. I love The Outsider. It's one of my favourite Kings. Holly Gibney's first kind of solo sort of case, and not just Holly, but the other cop characters in it. And I just really like the setup. It's dark. It starts dark. It's it's a dark idea. This thing that can transform into pretty much anyone it wants to. It's a kind of identity theft on a horrible supernatural scale. It's got some really creepy bits in it. Really creepy bits. And yeah, the ending's not the best, but it's one that the majority of it, like 90% of it, I love. I think it's a great book, and it's certainly one of my favourite of his kind of more modern offerings. And it's got Holly Gibney in it, and I love anything with Holly Gibney in it. Okay, prompt number 12, creepy characters. which Stephen King characters would you like to have dinner with? Oh, well, in terms of a good character, Holly. I think Holly would be brilliant to have dinner with. She is by far and away my favourite King character. But another one, you know, from early years would be like Ben Hanscom as an adult. I think, you know, Ben Hanscom's like my favourite of the Losers Club, I think. And just a really kind of, I think he's possibly the one that I connected with the most in it. And was just, yeah, a really endearing character. I really liked Ben. In terms of like creepy characters or like villains, I don't think I'd want to have dinner with any of them because I might end up on the menu. So yeah, I can't even think of any characters of Kings that I'd like to, like villains that I'd like to interview. They're all pretty nasty. Okay, prompt number 13. Has Stephen King inspired you to start reading and writing? Yeah, both really. Certainly start reading horror and getting into, as I say, he was my gateway into the horror genre, of which I read quite a bit now. And certainly writing wise, yeah, he's certainly had an influence just in terms of, you know, when I do, you know, what I'm writing is horror. And, you know, again, that love of horror comes from King really in terms of my introduction to that genre. But yeah, just certainly in terms of when I'm writing character, I think about King a lot and what King does to make his characters so memorable, because I think that's what I love about King the most is his character work. And so yeah, I am conscious of kind of questioning, okay, what has King done? How does he make those characters so real in a book? And kind of sort of try and take, take notes, take some inspiration from that. Okay, question 14. If you were able to meet Stephen King, what would you say? Dude, how do you write so much? Like, so much, like so many long books and just so much. And even if you look at just the King bibliography, as in books he's published as Stephen King, you've got an absolute ton over his career. And then you've got all the Barkman books as well, plus short stories here, there and everywhere. And it's just like, how do you write that much? But yeah, that's something that has kind of always astounded me really, is just the longevity of his career. Prompt number 15, have you ever been to Bangor, Maine? Nope, I've never been to America. I do hope to go one day. I've got places I want to visit and people I want to meet and all that kind of stuff, especially now I'm doing BookTube. A lot of my BookTube buddies are over in the States and I would love to be able to, actually go and, see them in person at some point. But no, I've never been to Bangor, Maine. It might be a stop that I would make if I went over there, to be fair, just in terms of my love of the books. Okay, prompt number 16. Which do you prefer more, his books or movies, as in movie adaptations of his books, I guess? I don't do horror movies, so books. Okay, question 17. Name your favourite Stephen King movies. Well, as I've said, I don't have any. Okay, editing Al here. That was a lie. I remembered one. I think the one Stephen King movie that I do actually really, really love is The Green Mile with Tom Hanks. I haven't read the book yet. That's one of the ones that I haven't read yet. But I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. So that book is definitely quite up towards the top of the priority list on King's yet to read. My favourite Stephen King book, though, is by far and away It. For all its flaws, it is just joyous, that one. I can listen to that time and time again, and it never fails to engage me, to scare me, to creep me out, to just suck me in and put me in a bubble of Kingness. For the time that I'm engaged with it. I absolutely love that one. Okay, tag number 18, final one, is to tag some people. So I will tag 3 people today. I will tag Ollie over at Criminolly. Ollie's read quite a lot of King, I believe, and so we'll have some interesting answers. I will also tag Troy, Mr. Troy Tradup, because Troy and I have, I think, probably quite different opinions on quite a lot of King, based on past conversations. And so, yeah, if you fancy a quick tag video to do there, Troy, jump on board. I'd like to hear what you've got to say about these. And the final person is Mike over at Mike's Book Reviews. I don't know whether you do tags at all, Mike, but I'm tagging you because you're to blame / thank for getting me back into reading Stephen King in the last few years. After I'd finished it on audiobook, I went and searched on YouTube for, you know, kind of King videos, Stephen King videos, to kind of figure out where to go next with my Stephen King reading, and I found Mike's channel, and that's kind of really got me kind of going again with my Stephen King sort of fandom, if you like. So that is it from me today. Thank you very much for watching today, folks. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider giving me a like and subscribing for more content coming very soon. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.